Hello folks, it's discussion video day because I want to talk about 3 items in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that suck. 3 new items, that is. And yes, I know Home is about to release, but I still want to talk about these because with Home releasing, these aren't going to change much, to be completely honest. So, 7 new items dropped when Scarlet and Violet came to Inception. And I'm just going to talk about all of them real quick, just a short, super brief description, and which I think are the best and worst. So, Booster Energy increases Pokemon's best stat by a 1.3 boost, or if its speed is 1.5. This happens with all the Paradox Pokemon. Very strong item. I would argue it's the best new item that came out. It's a consumable item. It's really good on all the Paradox Pokemon. Helps them break through their checks or outspeed things. Very, very, very good. Ability Shield. This video is actually, let me start with the best items. Covert Cloak is probably the second best, with Loaded Dice being a close third. Covert Cloak is really good against things like Garganacci and Nuzzle Hatterene. It blocks the secondary effective moves, and this is huge, especially with Salt Cure right now. If Salt Cure wasn't as big as it is, I don't think Covert Cloak would be a big deal. But for right now, while Garganacci being in the meta, it's very good for Steel and Water types to hold because you don't get that Salt Cure effect. It's also good because you don't get Nuzzle paralyzed from Hatterene, which would otherwise always paralyze you. And if Scald comes back to Gen 9, which it probably will, then it'll be good at blocking burns from that. But I think that'll be a little too inconsistent to consistently use Covert Cloak for that. Loaded Dice is a close third. It's basically a skill link, but in your held item slot. It's not always 5 though, it's 4 to 5. In Maushold's case with Population Bomb, it's always at least 4. So basically, if you use a multi-hit move, it'll guarantee hit at least 4 times. If that's Triple Axle, for example, that'll mean if you hit to connect the first Triple Axle, the other 2 will guarantee connect. And Loaded Dice is really freaking good. It allows you to have flexibility with your moves, and it also consistently increases the base power of moves like Icicle Spear on Baxcalibur, for example, which is huge. Punching Glove. Punching Glove isn't huge right now because there's not a lot of Pokemon that can apply it, but once your Shifu comes back from home, it'll be a really good user of this because Surging Strikes actually gets boosted by the Punching Glove. Punching Glove gives a 1.1 boost to punching moves, and it also makes them not do contact, which is huge because Surging Strikes is a multi-hit move, and you won't take Rocky Helmet from it if you're holding a Punching Glove, which is big because that's one of the best ways you could beat your Shifu Rapid Strike is through Rocky Helmet and Iron Barbs. I don't think Ferrothorn is coming back at all. Slight spoilers, by the way. I don't think it's coming back at all through either Home or the DLCs, but I could be wrong. But it'll still be good because Rocky Helmet's always a good item, especially against Corviknight. This will be really good for your Shifu. So, that leaves us with the 3 worst items. The Ability Shield. The Ability Shield is actually why I originally was going to make this video, because I thought this is by far the stupidest item. It's so niche, so bad. But honestly, if I'm going to say the Mirror Herb isn't explored enough, I have to say the Ability Shield isn't explored enough either. And I'll show why in a little bit, because the Ability Shield specifically has some really cool applications. But basically, you can't have your ability changed by others. And that's not only like skill swap, which was my initial inclination, but it also means that you can't have your ability modified by Mold Breaker, which is pretty big actually. And I think at first I was like, this is stupid. There's no reason you'd ever want this. Like the opportunity cost of not running a better item is just too good. But I was wrong, and I'll show you why in a bit. Mirror Herb, I think this item isn't explored enough because it is really good for keeping your Pokemon going toe-to-toe with your opponent if they think they can just set up and win. I don't think it's explored enough, but I do think it's really niche, so I think it'll always just be one of those like surprise factor items that you're not really going to see super often, but if you do ever see it, it'll be really good. I have a feeling there's going to be one tournament where Mirror Herb ends up winning someone a game, and that's when it's going to just spike up in popularity, is what I'm guessing. Clear Amulet, though, this is by and far the worst item in at least singles. In doubles, it's good. In singles, it's complete crap, though. It prevents you from having your stats lowered by other Pokemon or their abilities, which if there were any good Intimidate Mons in OU right now, maybe it'd be good, but there aren't, and so it's kind of just a boring item that doesn't really do anything. There's not really any Pokemon that try and lower your stats except for one application. We'll talk about that as well. So I'm going to show the applications for all three of these items before I officially say this is why they are the worst. And let me show you those applications real quick. I gotta change my team, so 1 second. Okay, so my friend Mr. 502-youtube.tv has agreed to help me out with this video, which I really appreciate him taking time out of his day to help me out. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a team that you could actually see in UU. This is a genuine, like, maybe UU team. Not that all these guys would be on the same team, but like, these are all Pokemon that are usable in UU, except for probably Tatsugiri and Gardevoir, but that's alright. So, I'm going to show you guys what the ability shield does in terms of Mold Breaker. So, I'm going to start with Tinkaton on my screen, and my opponent is going to click Espeon, which has Magic Bounce and the ability shield. So, I'm going to click Stealth Rock on Espeon, which has Magic Bounce. So, it's going to bounce these hazards back at me, right? It's going to... Is that how it works? Yeah, that's how it works. Actually, no. Sorry. It won't bounce the hazards because I have Mold Breaker. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, because I have Mold Breaker, I will get through the Magic Bounce and I will be able to click these hazards on the Espeon, right? Tinkaton's taking nice 13 from Psychic. And Stealth Rock actually bounces the rocks back at me, which is crazy. Because this thing has magic. I have Mold Breaker, right? Nope. Ability Shield actually prevents you from having Magic Bounce nullified by Mold Breaker, which is a really cool attack. So I'm going to prove it with Thunder Wave as well here real quick. I'll just get a Reflect up. Hopefully it doesn't change much. And yeah, Magic Bounce that yellow magic back as well. Okay. So next application. I'm going to show an interaction between Quagsire and Haxorus. Quagsire has the ability shield here. Haxorus has Mold Breaker though. So Mold Breaker should typically go through Unaware, right? That is how it usually works. So we're just going to set up with Haxorus right now. We're just going to set up a bunch of Dragon Dances. I'm going to set up a bunch of Spikes. And this should be doing a lot of damage, right? Because I'm Unaware, but he's Mold Breaker. So it should be doing a ton of damage here, right? Nope, Quagsire actually keeps Unaware against +2 Haxorus. And I'll prove it here. I'm going to Dragon Dance with Haxorus and recover up with Quagsire here to show that it's still doing the exact same amount of damage, right? And so, Dragon Claw is doing 30%. So, when you're setting up with a Mold Breaker Pokemon on Unaware, if you have the ability shield, you actually are protected from the Mold Breaker. So Quagsire can consistently be a switch into Haxorus in UU. These are both UU Pokemon. Quagsire is great at walling Haxorus, but if Haxorus can set up and it has Mold Breaker, Quagsire can't do its job anymore. So ability shield is actually very, very helpful. Now, of course, you lose leftovers, which is a pretty big deal, but like not the end of the world, right? So there's one more application of ability shield. I'm actually not sure if this is how it works or not, but I want to see if this is how it works. So I'm just going to click Dragon Dance with Haxorus right here. Bring in Tatsugiri. Tatsugiri has Storm Drain, but it also has ability shield, which, if I'm correct, should block Trace Gardevoir from being able to trace the Storm Drain, and I should be able to click Surf on Gardevoir, if I'm not mistaken. But I want to see if this actually is how it works. So Gardevoir is going to come out here. Trace is still going to be Trace. Okay, so Trace actually still steals the ability shield. That's actually really good to know. That's interesting. So I wasn't 100% sure about that interaction, but there you go. Ability shield cannot stop your ability from being Traced, which is actually really good to know. So that's the ability shield right there. Let me show off the clear amulet before I forfeit to myself here. I mean, to this random stranger. I want to pivot out with Grimmsnarl right now. I don't think Grimmsnarl is in a great position. I want to switch at one of my other guys to kill Donphan. So I'm going to Parting Shot on it. If it's Donphan, though, I want to get up as many hazards as possible. So I'm just going to click Stealth Rock. And look at that. Grimmsnarl's Parting Shot was blocked by the Clear Amulet. So not only does Clear Amulet block the stat drops, but because of how Parting Shot works, you have to get the stat drops in order for the Parting Shot to work, which is huge. I mean, that's huge. That's pretty big, being able to block Parting Shot like that. I think that's a very niche application which is why it's one of the worst items. But it is an application that is possible. Also, a fun fact I figured out while testing this team with Clear Amulet that also makes it bad, which I wish it would do this, but it doesn't. So Tinkaton's holding Clear Amulet here, and Scizor is able to defog on it. I don't get an evasion drop, but it still allows it to defog. Kind of like how Substitute doesn't block defog in that same vein. Also, another cool interaction with the ability shield is it also nullifies Mycelium Might against magic bounce users, if the magic bounce user is holding an ability shield, of course. This is only really relevant for Toedscruel, but Toedscruel is also a UU Pokemon right now, and, you know, Espeon's UU and all as well, so thought I should also mention this one as well. So, why do I think they're the worst? Because they're all way too niche. Ability Shield has good applications, but it's only it's in UU, which I shouldn't say it's only in UU. I'm not saying UU isn't a viable good tier to play. It is. It's a real tier, but I think it's a little too niche. I think it's unexplored right now, though. I think people need to use Ability Shield a little bit more. I think it's a really cool item, and I think Ability Shield is another item that people just need to be aware of, because I don't think people are even aware of Ability Shield, much like Clear Amulet and Mirror Herb. Clear Amulet, I think, is the worst of these three. I think blocking Parting Shot is really good, but again, that's a very, very niche interaction. There's not really much application. Blocking Intimidate is good on setup sweepers too, I guess. It makes them a lot scarier, but again, I think that's a very niche application that you'd rather, if you're wanting to do that, I think you'd rather just have Substitute. If you're really trying to block Intimidate, you'd rather have Substitute and have the free item slot to either have a Life Orb or Leftovers or maybe even an Expert Belt or Heavy Duty Boots in the case of Rock Weak Pokemon. Mirror Herb, I think Mirror Herb is an item that just needs a breakthrough game. It needs a tournament game that people have like a, oh, this actually is really good and strong. And I think Mirror Herb is an item that will get explored at some point. I think someone's going to bring it, and the opponent's going to try and set up and sweep, and then the opponent's going to whip out the Mirror Herb, steal the opponent's boost, and then boost themselves, and then sweep. I think that's what's going to happen. And I'll be interested to see once that happens, but I think it will eventually happen at some point. I don't want to say Mirror Herb's the worst here, because I think it's unfair, because we don't know if it has like a higher application. You know, I don't think it's being used enough to actually be able to be like, this is clearly the worst item. Whereas Clear Amulet, I can be like, this has one niche application and that's it. Ability Shield has some niche applications, but it's very important. It's like, it's an integral part of a Pokemon that would use it. Unlike Clear Amulet, where you could have other options. Clear Amulet is replaceable. Ability Shield isn't. Mirror Herb is too unexplored to be able to have an opinion on, in my opinion at least. So, what does this mean? What are your guys' thoughts? For me at least, I'm gonna probably make a UU video showcasing the Ability Shield. I'll probably make a Mirror Herb video again. Not gonna use Grafia though, because screw Grafia. I'm gonna try and find some uses for Clear Amulet though in the tiers, because I think it could be interesting, but I think without any Intimidate mons right now, maybe it's an item to be explored in post-home. I think if we want to use it better, we need to use it when Landorus, Therian's Ugly Mug is roaming around the tier. So that's my take. Let me know your guys' thoughts though. Do you guys agree? Do you think maybe the Punching Glove's one of the worst items? Is Ability Shield not as good as I'm saying it is? What are your guys' thoughts? Leave them down in the comments below. I appreciate y'all watching. Let me know if you guys like this kind of content or not. And thank you all for following me and watching me lately. You obviously don't have to, so I really do appreciate it. And yeah, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.